Hey everyone, okay, so today we are going to be doing a fox eye tutorial, or as I like to call it, angled eyeshadow with a nice highlight. I honestly think that there's probably someone somewhere who goes, right, we need to make up a trend. What should we call it? Let's call it a fox eye. You know, just nonsense. So what we're going to do is, what we want to do is lift the eye. We want to visually lift this outside corner of the eye, and we want to visually lift this portion of the cheekbone. Pulls the eye up and gives an instant eye lift. Now, oftentimes with the fox tutorial, it's darker on the outside, there's a darker bit on the inside, and oftentimes it's lighter here. I don't find that particularly, you know, like this bit isn't colored, so to speak. So we're going to do it differently, but we're still going to visually lift the eye. Let me grab a tissue. Here's a used one I used earlier. I'm just kidding. Okay, so you know that I use this shadow shaper, and people are asking about it. Now, Alexis Vogel did it. I believe Ravishing Cosmetics is the website now. She passed away, so these are very treasured to me. But you can use a tissue. It all is the same thing. Remember, whether you're using a tissue or you're using the shaper, you must make sure that this portion here is visible. Don't cut it off like that. You do not want to cut it off. It has to be about 1/8 of an inch there visible. Very, very important. Otherwise it's a totally different look and you won't like it. Okay, so I'm going to use a gray. I think I'm going to use like a medium to light gray color, and let's make a start. So the first thing I'm going to do is just clarify the eye slightly. So I'm just going to use a light, very light eyeshadow, and I'm just going to sweep this all over the eyelid just to clarify it. So just to brighten it up slightly. Now, if you don't have good lashes, it can really help, particularly on the outside corner, to give that illusion of going up and out. So false lashes work great for this, but you don't have to. So just clarify the eye as best you can. Now we're going to take a medium grey eyeshadow. Now I'm using my number 4 brush, so I'd highly recommend it. And place your tissue or your shadow shaper. Now what you want to do is you want to place it about 1 hair away from where the brow ends. So there's a little space here, that works great, and you're leaving that 1/4 of an 1/8 of an inch gap, okay? Very, very important. And what you're going to do, actually I'm just going to angle it slightly more, because I don't want it to be too extreme, because, you know, I just don't. I like to start on the eyelid. Now I'm going to colour the whole eyelid with this. Now you don't have to, but I am. I just think that it looks like it belongs to the same eye as opposed to leaving it bare. Now we're going to push it into the socket and lock it. So that's your natural socket shape. And now we're just going to, with the eye open, pull it out. So you're just dragging the shadow out. I hope this is auto-focusing. And then make sure you get that outside corner here. And just build up the colour at this outside corner, because technically this is the part that you want to have the most dimension, the most depth, is this outside corner. So really work it here. So I'm still building up the colour on this outside corner, and then working it in gently. And I pull the shadow shield away, or your stencil, and you'll be left with an elongated eye. Now, this isn't as elongated as some of them like to go, but I don't want to go too ridiculous. I do want this to actually look like you could wear this. So I'm just cleaning off my brush, and I'm just going to add a touch more grey, just a little bit more. And I just want to make sure that the eyelid is filled. Now we're going to tight line now the upper lash line. So it just adds that, you know, that really darkness at the lash line that I really like. Now, oftentimes with the fox trend, we then make this area here darker. And you can do, but it is a much stronger look if you do that. So what I'm going to do instead is actually highlight it with a very small brush, because it gives the illusion that the eyes are wider. And I just think it's a prettier all-round look. But before we do that, what we want to do is we now want to take care of any redness that's here, which I need to deal with. And we want to highlight all this section underneath the eye, okay? All of that needs to be highlighted. I'm going to use Laura Mercier Secret Camouflage, and I'm going to use the lighter side, and I'm going to use a brush. And I'm just going to knock off some of it on the back of my hand. And I'm going to start here in this inner corner to begin with. I'm just kind of just patting it in, okay, nothing fancy. And I'm just going to pat it. I'm just going to buff actually this little area here of redness. Let's get rid of that. There it is. It's a lot of redness. Okay, so now I'm going to go underneath the eye with that same concealer, and as I come here, I really want to make sure that I'm angling this out, okay? So take the concealer, my mirror's at such an angle, there we go, and angle it out. So you're following that lash line and that line, and angle it out, create a stripe, because it's going to lift that eye, which is what we want. And don't worry if it's not brilliant now. We can work with that with this brush in a second. So really cut that eye, create a straight line, and now buff off, because we don't want to leave a line like that. So now just very lightly start to blend that line into the rest of the face and blend it down, okay? So you're aware of the line, but it's not going to be as hard as this. And if you want to, you can use a beauty blender to blend it. But I'm just going to use the brush and just keep going back and forward until I'm happy. So we might be here a while. So the goal here is to lift this outer corner so that it looks uplifted, right? And here's something else to think about, which, you know, everything's a personal preference, but if you're dragging the eye out and you drag the highlight out to exaggerate that, then it kind of doesn't make sense to put a big red blusher here or pink or whatever in a round circle. You kind of want that to be angled too, so that everything is visually moving upwards, right? So when we get to that in a minute, we'll angle the blusher and just use your finger and pat and press until you're happy. So you can see that this side has more lift to it, right? Because you can kind of see here there's this kind of bag, whereas this side is now being pulled up and out. So I'm going to get a smaller brush. So I'm going to take that same concealer, and this time I'm now going to go around the inner corner of the eye. So I'm going to start right here at the tear duct, and I'm exaggerating it out slightly too much. So I'm pulling it down and then across. So this is where the darker shadow would go, but I just kind of find that this works just as well, but it's just not as harsh. Now you could actually use a shimmer shade if you wanted to instead. I kind of like the fact that it's matte, but you could use something really pretty and shimmery here, but the technique is still the same. You're exaggerating this inner corner and then pulling it down. And all that does is it gives the eye more length this way, and now you've got length that way. So we're going to put some powder on, and then we'll do some blush, and then we'll finish the lashes, and that will complete the look, and you'll kind of see it in its full impact when lashes are on. So I'm going to talk to you about powder at a later date, but I always use a powder puff. They help to blend edges, they really set makeup, powder puffs, and I just think I think it's way more glamorous to use a powder puff than anything else, I really do. But powder brushes work great. I should know, I've got loads of them and they're brilliant, but I always like to use a powder brush after I've after I've set the makeup. And then I can take a nice powder brush and just dust off any excess product. Now we're going to do blusher. So we're going to angle this blusher. So I'm just going to use NARS Orgasm, and this is really one that I should throw away because this is probably, you know, this is my one that I use for tutorials, but it's got to be 6 years old. I know, it's terrible, but it still works. So you want to angle it, and you want to start back here because it's easier to blend into the hairline. If you start here, you've got your concentration of color very, very in an intense place. So as you're coming down here, it's then kind of bleeding into nothing. But this then helps that angle because you've still got that light and then there's a bit of color. And I really am not a fan of contouring with this kind of look because you then got your Neapolitan ice cream look going on, which isn't for me. And then just blend it back into the hairline. Okay, absolutely fine. And you've now just, I mean, now it kind of matches my ear, but it's just a little bit of color there and it picks up the light beautifully because the eye is completely matte. So now let's do lashes. So what I'm going to do here is use longer lashes on the outside corner, and as we hit the middle, I'll use a couple of much smaller ones. Now, as always, I'm using Lashify because it's just great, and I'm actually going to curl my lashes first for this. Okay, so longer lashes on the outside corner and Lashify Bond to begin with. So I'm just going to lift the eyebrow up and I'm just going to kind of place that mainly at the root of the lash and then dot it on this inner corner. And Lashify is brilliant. If you look after them, you can reuse them. Fear not. And they're a bit cumbersome to begin with, but you know, ultimately you'll get the hang of it. And because of hooded eyes, they take up no lash line space, which is great. So you just want to, I've got my mirror at such an awkward angle, so I may have to do this a different way. And it sticks. And just press it in place and repeat. Forever repeat. So you're angling the lashes out. So you're giving this winged effect, which is what you want. And now I'm actually going to stack one more kind of midway in between that. And then I'm going to go in with some lighter ones. Because I just kind of feel that you really want there to be this pulled effect on this outside corner. So I'm actually just going to add one more to that outside corner, and then I'll add smaller ones on the inside, which kind of makes sense, right? Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. So I'm just going to pop it right there, and then just, oh, that one didn't go in. Let's have a look. Here it is. And now I'm going to clamp them to set. Okay, so I've kind of done that starburst effect where the lashes are coming out in this direction and then they kind of go up and turn that way. And other than needing to clean up a tiny bit on the inner tear duct, that pretty much completes the look. And you can see it's really just an angled eye. but you're pulling it this way. Your highlighter and concealer are going that way. Your blusher is going that way. Your lashes are going that way. And compared to the other eye, which looks much rounder, this looks more elongated here. And it just gives this beautiful visual lift to the eye, which I actually think looks really, really pretty. And we just use one single eyeshadow color all over the eyelid. And it was that simple. Now you could jazz this up, you could smoke it out by making it do some black on that outside corner. You could run a celestial shade all over the eye on this lower part of the eye to make it sparkle and glisten, which probably would look actually really pretty. So should we do that? Now we've nearly finished, let's do that. So let's just take a little something pretty and let's just place that over the entire mobile part of the eyelid. And that just gives it a little something a bit more beautiful, because when you blink, particularly if you've got small lids, you're not really going to see it that much, but when you blink, you get this flicker of light, which just looks just so beautiful. Or you could use something much darker and smokier to really give it a kind of smoky effect. And now that gives it a much more kind of dramatic, smoky, evening look, because when you blink, there's these flecks of gold, of black and silver, and it's such a pretty look. And like I said, if you wanted to, you could go around this inner corner with a shimmery eyeshadow, just to elevate it and just take it into a slightly stronger look. Now, of course, I understand that my definition of a strong look and yours might be very different. To me, this is a pretty intense look, right? To the Instagram generation, this is nothing. But this is what is so good about makeup, is that, you know, what you think is dramatic, somebody else doesn't, and it doesn't matter. There you go, that is it. We've lifted the eye, we've applied lashes, and it's just pulled and elongated and given us a sexier, more elongated, lifted eye. Thank you for watching, appreciate your time, really do. And I will see you all very, very soon. Thank you for watching, bye-bye.